The status of the repairs, we do have, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I believe we have 10 linemen on site now. Not all of them are on in the avalanche zone because that we're still doing a lot of avalanche control down there. And I want to thank Kensington Mine has been very, very helpful in supplying people and explosives and so forth for us down there. But we do have people doing the avalanche control. There are some towers that we have people on site exposing the foundations and making preparation for repairs and so forth. And the rest of them are constructing towers and that sort of thing down at Snettisham. It's about 3.5 miles, I believe, from Snettisham. Within 2 days, we had, the snow is about 5 or 6 feet deep at Snettisham. I understand it was melting pretty fast now, but we had to completely clear the runway. We normally don't keep it open down there, so within a couple of days they were able to get some heavy equipment and get it open so we could fly fixed wings in and out of there. And in conclusion, before we get into questions and answers, I just want to say that the outlook for Juneau is still pretty good. You've heard me talk about how we got Greens Creek connected on so that we could build Lake Dorothy early. They could buy the surplus energy to keep the rate impact down. AEL&P is still positioned very well to have some of the lowest rates in the state over the long run. So I just want to, I don't want anybody to get the idea that Juneau is not still the best place for a capital, all renewable energy, and a good place to live, and we will do everything we can to keep our rates as low as possible. And we're actually positioned, I think, better than any utility in the state to do that. So with that, I should then turn it over to questions.
We heard that the governor's disaster team has decided not to declare this a disaster. How does that affect you?
Well, it doesn't really impact us necessarily because we have in place the emergency COPA rate. We were hoping that there would be some funds come through to offset some of the cost of that diesel so that we could lower that rate. So that's where that was.
Could you touch base on the whole idea of this retroing the rate back to the 1st of April? There's a lot of discussion going on about what that means. If your meter actually was read on the 20th of March, we paid on the, you have to go. Can you just address how that works?
It's always the case in our tariff that when a bill is rendered, it's rendered based on the rates that are in place on that date. So we go from summer rates to winter rates on November 1st. So if you have all the whole, like say your bill near the beginning of the month, you would have had all of October's consumption. If you're billed near the beginning of November, all of that October consumption is billed at the beginning, on the November rates. On the end of that cycle, we go from winter rates to summer rates on June 1. So your entire May consumption, which would be under the winter structure, would be billed on June 1 at the summer rates. And the reason is because we read some meters every day throughout the month. We cannot read everybody's meter on one day. And I don't know, I don't have experience with other utilities to know how they bill or how they read meters and bill, but this is the same billing structure that we have in place normally. So if we had the ability to go out and read everybody's meter of the day of the avalanche and know what had been consumed, then with the work, it's simply a matter of calculations. You can figure out how much at the old rate and how much at the new rate. But we don't have the ability to do that, and the billing is essentially the same as the normal structure.
And the second question is, again, in what way, understanding that a lot of costs out of this are getting passed on the consumer, in what ways, if any, is AEL&P absorbing some of the costs as a result of this?
AEL&P's revenues, all that conservation is reducing our revenues. So AEL&P's revenues are going to be considerably lower this year, and our expenses are going to be much greater. And so it's going to significantly impact AEL&P. Our cash, we're even concerned about, even though we've got a big bank loan, just having enough cash to get through this crisis. So we know that it's going to be a bad year for us.
Are there enough tanker trucks and equipment in town to move the amount of fuel to your site? Or are you going to have to bring an increased tank?
We have about 3 days of fuel in our tanks. We have just small tanks just to carry us over. The fuel companies have about 30 days worth of fuel in their tank. So that gives us time then to get other fuel on its way, or to divert a fuel barge that was headed someplace else here. So I'm very comfortable with the fuel supply and delivery system that we have. We've been burning fuel at about a rate of 55,000 gallons a day, and that seems to be something that the fuel companies can deal with very easily and still keep their commitments to their other customers.
Does AEL&P have any catastrophic business loss insurance? Is Snettisham insurable? The diesel fuel cost being passed on to the consumer, how does that play out?
Go ahead.
Snettisham was constructed by the federal government and came online in the early 1970s. And they owned the project for 25 years, and as a federal agency, they did not have any insurance at all on the project. They self-insured. So if there was some sort of, if a piece of equipment failed, they would replace that, and then in their budget submittal to Congress that next year there'd be an appropriation to cover that. When Snettisham was sold from the federal government to the state of Alaska in 1998, the state of Alaska said, AEL&P, we want you to be our operating contractor, and we want you to carry insurance on the project. There was a study done at the time, kind of part of the due diligence in acquiring the project, and part of that study was to evaluate insurance needs. And the consulting firm that did that study said that you should have boiler and equipment insurance, you should have pollution, environmental insurance, you should have liability insurance to certain levels. And they said, from the research we've done, it doesn't appear possible to insure the transmission line. That doesn't seem to be industry practice. The other state of Alaska projects don't carry insurance on that, and their insurer won't insure a transmission line. So they said that's one part that you won't be able to get insurance for, and the state's never required us to do that. We're doing an insurance review this year of coverage on the Snettisham project, and that will be something that will be part of the review to say, is that available, and is it worth it?